Are you ready, Janine? Chris, turn your mics on. Okay. Meeting will come to order. Thank you for being here today. This is the Cache County Council meeting for Tuesday, October 26, 2021. We welcome you and we'll begin this evening opening by Councilman Paul Borup.
Okay. Well, I thought I'd tell a quick story on this. It's with today's press coverage and the back and forth, you have one side of the press saying one thing, the other side saying another thing, and you think this is kind of a new deal. My son came home from school the other day and he was talking about the Boston Massacre at a certain level, and that guy, I was talking to him about it and trying to explain kind of the details behind it with him. And I started to realize that what we're experiencing today is been experienced for years and years and years. And what was interesting about that, right, you had the patriots and you had the loyalists, and you had what happened, that some British soldiers shot some American citizens at the time. And really some passions were inflamed, and you had people just really at loggerheads. And John Adams, who was one of the founding fathers, and I'll take a pause here to say I appreciate the founding fathers. I'm grateful for America. I think this is the best country that's ever been on God's green earth. And they were very wise men. But John Adams was kind of a patriot, and he was assigned or volunteered to defend the British soldiers, the other side, basically. And this was at great personal risk to him. But what he said, I think, is very important today as we're in the same type of an environment where you have passions inflamed on both sides. Where he said facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclination, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts or evidence. So the truth is the truth, regardless of what noises are on both sides. And I just wanted to drive that point home tonight, and I'll just throw in another one from Mahatma Gandhi, who said something very similar. He says, an error does not become truth by reason of multiplied propagation, nor does truth become error because nobody sees it. So the truth is the truth regardless of that, and I think we should all take pause and really look for that truth. And with that, I'll conclude with a prayer. So our Father in heaven, we are grateful unto Thee for the blessings we have. We're grateful for this wonderful country that we have to live in, for the principles of liberty and freedom, for the wonderful valley in which we live, and for the opportunity we have to meet here today to talk about governance in this valley. We'd ask Thee to please bless us that we can make wise and proper decisions, and that we can have respect for each other. And we are grateful for all that we've been given to say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And if you'll join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for those sobering and important thoughts. So you've all probably, I assume, have a chance to review the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I would make a motion to approve with the exception of striking 9A, setting a public hearing for November 9th to receive public comment regarding the proposed property tax increase for the 2022 Cache County budget, since we are not proposing a property tax increase.
Okay.
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda with the amendment of removing 9A, setting a public hearing for our next meeting, November 9th, to receive public comment regarding a proposed property tax increase, because we're not proposing a property tax increase after all. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
It's the only way we get people to show up, though.
Look, there's some people here. Okay, next item on the agenda is review and approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to these minutes? And these are both the September 28th, which had some corrections made to them, and the October 12th minutes.
I have one correction for the October 12th.
Okay,
Lists the opening remarks and Pledge of Allegiance by myself, and I did it on the 28th of September, but not on October 12th.
so that would have been you, Barbara,
Yeah,
right?
that was
Yeah,
myself.
it was Barbara.
Good catch, Carl.
Okay. Any other changes or additions?
Move to approve with the changes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved to approve the minutes of September 28th and October 12th with the change on October 12th to change the opening remarks as being given by Barbara Tidwell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, oh, I forgot to excuse our county executive. This is where we usually have his report. He is out of town, and our deputy county executive is also not available tonight. So we will move to item 6, items of special interest. This is a proclamation in recognition and support of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And this, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Yeah, we got on this a little late. I felt that this would be in order since we, as a county, are victims advocates, and of course our county's attorney's office manage and deal with and see and help with domestic violence, and thought it would be a good thing for people to recognize that it's out there. Barbara, would you be able to read that for us? Oh, wait.
Okay, I will.
I can ask Carl.
No, I can
Of
do
course,
it.
I ask you right after you put something in your mouth.
Okay,
Oh, go ahead, Barbara.
if you want to.
You read better than I do.
Cache County Proclamation recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas October was first declared as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in 1987 in an effort to educate people on domestic violence and to connect individuals and organizations working on domestic violence issues. Whereas 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men in Utah have experienced domestic violence. Whereas since the year 2000, at least 42% of adult homicides in Utah were related to domestic violence. Whereas children are also victims of domestic violence and suffer long-term effects, including a greater risk for repeating the cycle of abuse as perpetrator and or victim, as well as an increased risk for mental and physical health problems. Whereas domestic violence can take the form of physical violence, emotional and verbal abuse, sexual coercion and abuse, financial abuse, and digital abuse. Whereas victims of domestic violence should find healing and perpetrators should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Therefore, be it resolved that the Cache County Council recognizes October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and invites residents to educate themselves on the signs of abuse and on how to support victims, encourages victims to find a safe place and support, and urges residents and organizations of our community to continue to work together to end domestic violence and abuse. By the Cache County Council, signed this 26th day of October, 2021, Gina H. Worthen, Chair. Do it. You want me to read the bottom part?
That's okay, thank
Okay.
you. The bottom just has some link or some websites that people can go to for more help, plus the phone number for CAPS's 24-hour support line. I'll entertain a motion to accept this proclamation.
So moved.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the Cache County Proclamation recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 7, which is the 2022 Citizens Budget, and we have Cody standing from our Executive's Office to present that. So the Citizens Budget is something that we started when Craig Butters was the executive to help citizens be better able to understand where their money is going. It's a more friendly look. It's easier to understand than the budget that we're given, which is kind of overwhelming to the regular folks. They weren't as familiar with it as others. So, Cody, go ahead.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. So again, I'm Cody. I work in the executive office, and I've been really involved in the creation of the 2022 Citizens Budget. This is the second year that we have created a Citizens Budget, and I'm excited to be able to present on that today. And my presentation will really just focus on answering 3 basic questions. Number 1 is, what is the Citizens Budget? Gina gave us a great summary of that, but I'd like to delve into that a little more. Number 2 is, why is this important and necessary for us to create each year? And number 3 is going over how this can be used by both citizens and leaders moving forward. So the Citizens Budget is, according to the International Budget Partnership, it's a government-produced budget document that's explicitly created to be used by the public. As Gina mentioned, we publish our normal government budget, county budget each year, and that can be used by the citizens, but it's often hard to understand if you don't have experience specifically in government budgets. And so the creation of the Citizens Budget takes all of the information that's available in the budget produced by the county each year and simplifies it, breaks it down, tries to present it in a way that's easier for citizens to understand. And to do so this year, we've focused on using 2 main resources that are published throughout the industry just in creating budgets. The first is published by the International Budget Partnership, and it's just called the Citizens Budget Guide. It helps to break down just the basics of how to create a budget, whether on a national level or a local level, and it uses a lot of good resources and tips for how to make sure that it's very easy for citizens to understand and to access. The second document that we used is a plain English handbook, which is published by the Securities and Exchange Commission each year, and this is just focused on helping anyone who's creating financial documents to make sure that it's easily read and understood by citizens. And to do so, we focused on making sure that not only the words are common words that are used and that we're avoiding financial jargon, but that we're also using fonts that are very easy to read, that it's structured and formatted in a way that makes it easy to get through and that it's not cumbersome, that we're using graphs and charts like you can see here to take complex budget information and just break it down into a way that is easy to understand and visualize, whether you're a government official or a citizen. And we also have the goal of making sure that it's easy for citizens to access. And then we want to look into why a citizen's budget was needed and is published. And so this really focuses on 3 main goals that we have. The first is to increase transparency. The second is to increase participation from the public. And the third is to increase coordination. Transparency doesn't mean just having access to these documents so that we're publishing them. It also goes into making sure that they're in a format, in language that is easy to understand, as was mentioned. The goal of this transparency is for citizens to participate in the budget. As we're creating the citizens' budget and the county budget each year, the goal is for this to be representative of what's important to the residents here in the valley, and that requires participation from them in that process as well. As you can see here, this is just an example of any budget, and particularly the citizens' budget, is based on the information that's available to us. We have the information that comes from the decisions from the council and our finance department as to how spending will be done in the coming year, but we also need information that comes from consulting with citizens and their participation in the process, where we can gain more information of what it is that they want to better understand, what we can include in the citizens' budget, as well as how they want to see spending to be done moving forward. And again, the final one is coordination, which is closely tied to participation, but we want to make sure that we are coordinating with our citizens as well as other government entities and other organizations throughout the valley in making sure that our citizens' budget also represents their needs and what it is that they're looking for. And then finally, how can this be used moving forward? For citizens, clearly this document can be used to better understand the county budget so that they can see how our tax dollars being spent, and then that they can create and voice opinions on that spending. This can be done in public hearing settings, like the one that will be coming up for the final approval of the county budget, but it can also be done through working with the members of the county council for their respective regions. And then leaders, in turn, can use this document to check in with citizens. The goal of the process of creating the citizens' budget is, again, to work with citizens and community leaders outside of the county government to understand what it is that their thoughts and feelings are on the current budget and how things can be improved moving forward. And so involving citizens in the future, in this case, means in future citizens' budgets, the process, we want to make sure that we're working with focus groups of citizens to make sure that we have their input and that we're making sure that the citizens' budget is actually what they are interested in knowing rather than what we assume they're interested in knowing. So this citizens budget will be available on the Cache County website. It can be accessed by going, this week it will be published, the tentative citizens budget, and it can be accessed by going to the news or announcements page or by going to the finance department's page on county budgets. And after the final approval of the 2022 budget, the citizens budget will be revised to make sure it's accurate with any changes that are there and will then be republished. And if there are any questions, I can take those.
I think this is a great document.
Cody, do you have the ability to pull up the document itself?
Yes.
I think it would be good to show because it's, like you said, Carl, it's a great document and it's very simplified. It is easy to look at. It's not overwhelming, and I'd love for people to see what that is.
Yeah, give me just one moment, I'll pull that up. Okay, so this is just, let me get rid of this. So this is what the 2022 tentative citizens budget looks like. It just breaks down so we'll have an introduction that goes over, again, the purpose of this budget, how it's going to be structured, why it's important, and what can be done with this information, similar to the presentation. And then it breaks down budget basics for those that may not have a good handle on what a budget is, but specifically how the county also develops their budget and what goes into that process, and an overview of how the budget's structured. And so, again, in this case, it's primarily based on different funds that revenues and expenses come from. We go into a sustainable budget review of looking at how the county makes decisions regarding making sure that we are, good stewards of tax dollars, and what can be done moving forward as expenses increase to make sure that we are, again, managing funds effectively. And then we have revenue and expense summary and breakdown of two of the major funds, which is the general fund and the municipal services fund. And then there is some information at the end, again, almost a glossary of breaking down what funds are. So as Gina mentioned, it's just really taking the information that is available in the county budget and breaking it down in as simple a way as possible with only the information that is most needed. So.
Thank you, Cody. Are there any questions, council? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Cameron taking notes on this?
Okay, we now have an information technology report from Bart Nelson, our Director of IT.
Thank you. We'll have death by slide deck tonight. Whoops, that's not what we wanted. Should be good. All right, go with the slide deck. So I'm Bart Nelson, I'm the IT director. You all know me for the most part. See if we can get this gadget to work. So when I asked the executive, the chief, Bryce, what he wanted me to cover today, he said, just tell him what you're working on. So this is slide 1, what is IT working on now? And we're going to cover kind of 3 major areas. The day-to-day stuff is ongoing, some work in progress, and then some things we've done this year that might stand out. It certainly won't be inclusive, but we'll talk a little bit about it. So the day-to-day help desk type stuff, application support, application maintenance, we cover a lot more ground in the county than I think sometimes people realize. The road shop, 7 or 8 miles that way, the sheriff's office. We have 8 or 9 satellite sites around the county that all hook back into us and use our same network, our same internal phone system, our same everything. So we really truly are a wide area network. Our bread and butter is the computer network infrastructure. So basically all the hardware, the software, the components behind what allows you to use your tablets here, and the people who run desktops, and there's very few desks in the county that don't run on a computer anymore, obviously. It's become a high-tech world. Department and event support, so obviously we just had a big fair and rodeo a couple months ago. There's just IT behind just about everything we do in the county. The list could go on a lot further, but I won't bore you with that. But what's been really critical this year is new buildings. You've seen a lot of road shops. CJC is in the process of moving up here. I put the SAR building, which I adopted its new term, the old road shop, search and rescue building. The public defenders are going to potentially house the old CJC shop. I just wanted you to know there's a whole lot of work, IT work, that goes behind standing up a new site, a new facility, a new operation, a new department. So call that out. My infrastructure team does a really, really excellent job standing up buildings and getting it right up front as best as we can, and dealing with all the headaches that come with that. Cybersecurity, you can't have an IT conversation without talking cybersecurity these days. The number one cause of breaches and problems isn't firewalls and all the technical things behind IT anymore. It's users. Users open the door to cyber problems. So we spend, and these are prioritized, we spend most of our time, money, training the people what not to do. I know you all get these emails all the time saying, take this cute little snippet and learn what a domain is, or learn when to click and when not to click, and how to tell when to click and when not to click. Just, if we could get everybody in this county to understand domains, email addresses, to the point where they could see the bad actors coming in, the danger of clicking a link and being able to interpret that link and then not opening an attachment, especially one you don't expect to show up in your email, we'd be almost all the way down the road, and we wouldn't need the next 2 things, which are endpoint. This year we went with Sophos Intercept X as our endpoint protection. Got to have that at the PC level still, even if you trained your users, because no matter how much you train them, they're going to probably click on something, and you want to catch the vast majority of the bad actions you can right there at the PC. Emergency response. to a hack event or to an emergency. We work a lot with the EOC and other people to work on disaster recovery plans, backups that aren't available in case or when we are breached or hacked, so that we can protect the county's data. We run a tax roll system in the county that's the envy of a lot of other counties out there, because we started it here. We started the NGO, and I'll get a little bit more into that as we move on with slides, but we started a tax roll system here in the county that's proliferated out to a couple different commercial organizations. But know that NGO was started here. We wrote the first line of code, and we still have it today, and we're the only legitimate owners of that system. Dozens of applications, dozens, maybe even hundreds. We have 80 plus servers. Most of them are virtual now, so we have one server, physical server, running dozens of logical servers, if you will. We've very much gone with the virtualization for low power, low cooling, low heating needs in our data centers, and we try to stay on the close to the bleeding edge of all the technology. Whatever makes sense, we tend to try to adopt it here. Off the shelf and in the house applications running on those servers, we have a bunch. I'd say in the 300 or 400 range. So we have a strong component of application developers in addition to the help desk and infrastructure guys and gals. And I'll take questions along the way. You can't interrupt me. The big elephant in the room this year has been the county website refresh. It's touched everybody, and it probably has touched the end user as much or more than it has the internal departments. But when we decided a couple of years ago, when Executive Butters was still here, we decided that the web page was getting a little bit older, and we have just barely got around to fitting it on our top of our priority list now a couple of years later. But it was more or less developed in 2012 in the form it was just before this latest refresh. And we started at the ground and said, what do we want a website to do? And really what it ultimately ended up to be was kind of, let's be like Google and let's make everything searchable and findable and information readily available to people. And there's a bunch of problems with the old page that we tried to solve along the way. Here's a lot of the problems that I just mentioned. Stale data and inaccurate content is the #1 complaint by far we get from the end user community. This page is inaccurate, this phone number's wrong, this email address doesn't work, etc., etc. That purely comes down to us having eyes on glass and the people that know what the data should be, making sure the data is there, and we've addressed that a little bit, and I'll get more into that. Searchability, if you search for something on the old web page, the first thing you got was a half a page, if not a full page, of Google ads and Google preferences. This is what Google thinks you should find when you searched on it, and we said we can do better than that. So you do get a mix of some of that, but what you get is county content and county pages up front, and we can actually tune our search engine to make things pop to the top and search a lot better. So we made it a constant adjustment type of system that we can make work like we need it to work. Very high on the list was mobile friendly. Our site was just not good on a phone. Tablet maybe a little bit, but phone it was impossible to operate. We had a header that spawned the whole top of the page and a bottom trailer that did the same. And the only thing valuable on a phone would have been the I want to section, and you got one little choice at a time and you ended up scrolling endlessly to get there. So what we've done, and that's why the picture of the phone there, is we've gone with a tiled format. So those tiles, they stack in the rows of 3s, but when you get on a small device like a phone, and that's not a good accurate representation, it becomes a single row and you have to scroll down a little bit further. But much more user-friendly, much more navigable, much more efficient. A lot less clicks to get where you want to be. What used to take 4 and 5 clicks now takes a click or 2. We will continue to work on that and make that even more efficient. Popularity based. So this is actually a screenshot of the tiles as of yesterday afternoon. And those tiles will change over time. The top row are all pinned, and you can tell there's a little tiny pin right next to the title on the right. Those are pinned in place. The bottom 6 rows are popularity based. If somebody's hitting our GIS page, and that's the first one on row 4 there, or element 4, if they're hitting the GIS page, and right now that is the #1 hit page in the county, is our GIS mapping. It's going to stay in 1, and up there indiscreetly on the lower right shows the number of clicks. So we put a fairly sophisticated algorithm into making things to the top, and we've challenged all the departments in the county to drive traffic to their site if they want to be on top of the list. I mentioned efficiency. One thing about the new design is IT is not going to be the police. It's going to be regulated and monitored information by the PR committee and the members thereon, and IT will assist if content needs to be taken off or something like that. But for the most part, that content's going to be reviewed by those folks, owned by each department. So the department head became the de facto owner of all the department data on their website, and they can assign content managers as they need to. The goal here is to not have a single choke point for stale data. I've challenged this week in an email to all department heads to get out there, review your site. Let's get it up to date as we roll this new design out, and let's stay on top of it from here on out. There's some policy behind it that's going to drive that, and there's going to be some published style guides coming out of the PR committee too. Another really cool thing we did early in the year was a thing called CDOC/auth. So CDOC is our in-house document management system. We were paying, I don't know if you all remember the Sire days, and then we moved to Highlands on-base product. Very expensive products, and we used a minuscule amount of the features, and everything we tried to add cost an arm and a leg in licensing to add. So we said we're going to build a system that does the top 10 things we do to start with, and we're going to take it in-house. We're saving in excess of $24,000 a year just in licensing, and we had to put a lot of cycles of development into it, but the product will run without licensing fees. The cost will purely be manpower of our development staff. It integrates so much better with county applications. The tax roll, the various applications that will dip in and need a document to be retrieved, Consol on our finance side, HRIS on our HR side, they integrate and they just function better and faster with CDOC than they ever would with the old system. So owning these systems and even integrating with third-party applications, things just work better and they work more efficiently. It's much easier to use. UX stands for user experience. I can't let you go without an acronym. And once again, searchability is the word of the day. You can search, you can find stuff. Much easier. It's almost Google-esque again with our little slant on it. I think you've all heard a little bit about CDOC. Tax roll, I've been asked over the last couple of years, are we there yet? We will never be there as far as the tax roll needs no development. But are we done with phase 1 of the rewrite? Yeah, for about 1.5 years now. But the tax roll will evolve as legislation makes us evolve, as our county situations evolve, etc. And I threw up there core. People act like the tax roll and core are separate systems. They're really not. They share the same central database. We use the same actual queries in core that tax roll uses, so we don't maintain 2 sets of queries to return data on property. We have actually combined those 2, and we did as we went live with core. So part of what we're doing in the recorder's office is he's starting to scan his big books. The big books and pages that Deveron's been having and storing in great big vaults are all going to go online, and we're hoping to tackle that early next year. But once again, always evolving. The last thing I'm going to mention is Puma. Puma, when you think Puma, think cloud-based assessment. So the assessor's job of assessing valuation of property and setting those values, taking pictures and documenting and all the stuff the assessor does is going to go to a cloud-based application that UAC has offered to us. And we are taking, since we own NGO, once again, that bottom line there, NGO is ours, we've owned it from day one. We'll continue to own it. Full integration is going to be possible with Puma. It's a lot of work to get there because you're taking a piece of NGO that used to be in-house and we're clouditizing it, for lack of a better term.
Is that a real word?
No, it is now. I used it.
You coined it.
Anyway, the beauty of it is we can take NGO and we can integrate with just about anything that has an application program interface for us to integrate with. Same with Core, and Puma is just a good example of that. What are we working on next? The future's bright. We have a lot of cool projects coming up, a lot of stuff coming up that's going to help the county. It's going to help constituents, going to help everybody across the board, and it's also going to cut some costs and be able to do things a lot more efficiently. The network refresh up there, and here's where I'm going to have to put a caveat of some of these roadmap projects are stuck behind cargo ships in oceans and chipsets in Singapore and China. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but the next slide we're going to talk a little bit about obstacles to getting work done. I have budget this year for projects that I'm not going to be able to do because I can't get equipment. And in IT, that's a crisis because our equipment rolls typically in a 3-year cycle. Something you buy today is going to be fairly obsolete in 3 years. We've been very miserly and said we try to push everything to the 5-year mark. Sometimes to the 7 and 10-year mark. We bought our phone system with the intention of going 10 to 12 years, which is unheard of, but we think we can make that work. Servers we bought with a 5-year maintenance agreement, which locks us into those servers for 5 years, so we have to make it work. Or that's just kind of the way I do it. I set a line and I try to make it work. But these first 2 CIP projects, capital improvement plan projects, are so depending on the hardware that I'm not sure we'll be able to do them next year, but they are the CIP projects in my next year budget. Wireless County Network, I've worked with several folks around the county, and I mentioned we have 8 or 9 sites. They're connected together in ways not as efficiently as they could be. We do a lot of hiring of internet service providers to connect libraries and road shops and these other sites. The only fiber-connected site we have right now is the sheriff's office to here. The rest are all peripheral over somebody who's charging us money for that link. That third project is to put a wireless, some towers and some wireless radios and antennas, if you will, and build a high-speed wireless backbone among the county and bring all these sites a little more closer into the network than they are now. We're going for ARPA funding for that, and it's been on again, off again, but I'm hoping we get the ARPA funding for that project. Down along the bottom, we went with Google about 1.5 years ago to be our email suite and some application stuff. We can move a lot further into the application side of Google. Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Presentation applications, etc. My goal in the next couple years, and it's not an easy ship to turn, is to get us off of the Microsoft Office suite completely and do everything through Google. They interact fairly well now, but there's some money that could be saved in Microsoft licensing and fees that I think we should probably go after. And John and I lately have been working on the middle bottom one there is the Attorney Cloud. This year we've come up with a technical solution to actually move Justware to a Citrix cloud-based solution, and so far so good. The attorneys are happy and IT's happy with the result because you all know that I've come here asking for storage a few too many times, and this is going to eliminate the need to build that premise storage up as much as we have in the past, and the cloud is just so much more conducive to growing than your premise storage when you have high growth applications like the attorney's case management software is. The last one there is unified email systems. We spent the last couple of years trying to all get on the same email systems, and we're almost there. We're this close. The only outlier right now is tied to the Justware. We are still on Office 365 for the attorney's office, 30-ish seats in that office that we can bring into the Google suite as we make that attorney migration off of the Justware product, and I'm looking forward to working with John and his group to do that. That's kind of fairly short term, but that's our roadmap for now. Talked about obstacles. We wish there was a button on the left there for problems and solutions and you just push them, but right now a lot of the problems are out of our hands. That top one is killing us, the global supply chain. I just can't get anything. Even if I want to settle and get off-brand third-party stuff, it's more expensive than the good stuff was 2 years ago. So we have a backlog that's building pretty much daily that we're going to have to address at some point. And the problem is that logjam is not clearing in the very immediate future. Some people are projecting the end of 2022 before we see supply chain even resemble what it was pre-COVID. So I'll be leaning on you all when I have to come here and make some budget adjustments, because I can guarantee they're coming. The money I can't spend this year, I'm going to have to spend next year or the year following, and the end of next year could just be that whole logjam breaking open. I just want you to remember this presentation and the fact that we didn't spend money, and I'll be coming for it later, so it's not really a new request, it's more of a delayed request. Personnel has been a bit of a challenge. We're down one soldier right now, have been for about it's pushing 5 or 6 months. We've interviewed and we've put job postings out, and we can't fill that position. Nobody wants to come work for IT for 17.5 or 18 measly dollars an hour. It's an entry-level position. They can make more over at Burger King and get a $1,500 signing bonus to do so. So we're really struggling to fill our entry-level positions. Luckily, the mature staff at the higher levels have stayed with us. They can see that this is not long-term, and we've been able to retain them. I hope that continues. But if you think IT's exempt from all the personnel problems, we're not. We're struggling right now. Budgetary limitations. Obviously, IT could probably spend the whole county budget and all the budget that Cody just presented, and then I'd have the public mad at me, and I don't want that at all. Anyway, you can only do so much with the budgets we're on. We try to be very frugal, and we try to be real efficient with that budget, and just know that we care. There are limitations, but we get them. We don't want to see taxes raised. We live here too. We want government to run efficiently, and that's what we strive for. The last bullet is the IT equipment and life cycle. If it wasn't for supply chain problems, that's hard enough to deal with on the 3 to 5 year rotation level anyway. If you don't update equipment, you're kicking it down the road, and then you're facing a crisis down the road. So it's all building up with supply chain to be a bigger crisis. But even if it wasn't about hardware and infrastructure, the tool sets evolve. We used to manage our switches with a product called Java. Java's now on the blacklist because of security and other reasons. Well, they went to Flash. Well, guess what happened to Flash? It went to the wayside because nobody could deal with Flash and make it secure. So the tool sets behind all the hardware and the applications to manage our environments are constantly evolving. It's a moving target too. Staffing levels I've talked enough about. And that's really about it. I do want to thank you. That's why that's the big word up there in the smiley face. We recognize the council's support and appreciation of our group, and we do enjoy serving, but we like your backing. We understand that without you, we don't get to do our jobs, and we don't get to be funded and get to do the things that we love to bring to the county. IT guys will love to propose technology. That's going to be the answer to a lot of questions coming in the future and that face us today, and we're here for you, and we want to be here for you.
Thank you, Bart. Council, do you have any questions for Bart?
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Very much.
I did have one head with, like, the supply chain, you know, it's being limited right now. Is our risk going up in some ways, what could happen to us, or is that just capital improvement?
There is risk, but it's a short-term wave here, Dave. We should be able to overcome that and mitigate the risk. Most servers that roll off in the 3 to 5 year, or storage that rolls off in 3 to 5 year, we can get the vendors to support that for another year or two. There will come a point where they say no. But for the most part, you can kick it down the road once in a while. So we mitigate that risk by paying higher support costs when something is hit end of life or sunsetted. And we do that on occasion anyway, just because some equipment we feel can be kicked down the road and should be kicked down the road just a little ways and pay those maintenance fees to keep it running. We don't like to take that risk and stick our own necks out and say we're not going to have support on this device. We will pay the support fees and get the vendor to back the product so we can get replacement drives or whatever might fail, power supplies, the typical things that fail in our environment. But good question, thank you.
Barbara, did you have a question?
I was just going to say thank you for your accessibility. Whenever I have a little issue, you're right there to help me, so I appreciate it.
We only do that for you, Barb.
Good deal.
No, we do that for all 430 county employees. We're there for them, and we pride ourselves in that.
I've been waiting for 4 months to get with him, you know.
Except Dave, okay? No, we pride ourselves in not letting people fester on a problem forever, because that just breeds lack of unity and lack of collaboration. So we do try to get to those, I got a problem right now, we'll get to you right now, even if we got another problem that's not personnel driven or nobody's waiting on it. So we try to prioritize, and I have a really awesome staff. I can't say enough about the programming and infrastructure staff that I have. Not only have they ridden through COVID and some of the financial struggles that we have on occasion through the county as far as keeping people at market and making people want to stay here. I try to build good team morale. I try to keep the team happy if you can, as much as I possibly can. So, but they're just stellar individuals, down to the very person. I don't have one bad egg on the team, and I've had to fire in the past. It's not a pleasant thing, but we keep it as lean and clean as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
Okay.
so much for all you do, and thanks for your presentation.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, we'll come back to item 7C, the Agricultural Protection Advisory Board update. We need to move to the public hearing section. Let's do 9B. The Chair will entertain a motion to set a public hearing for November 9th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Regarding the resolution on adopting the 2022 Cache County budget.
I'll move to approve or set the public hearing for November 9th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Resolution 2021, adopting the 2022 Cache County budget.
That's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Second, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to set that public hearing for November 9th. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 9C. It's time to have a public hearing on Resolution 2021-21, another tongue twister, declaring county interest in real property located on Wolfpack Way, described as parcel number 45850 as surplus property. And those of you familiar with the area, this is 3100 North Logan address, 600 South Hyde Park address. It's on the south west corner, right there where that roundabout is, right across the street from Green Canyon High School. John, do you have any information you could give us about this?
spoke with Aaron today to ask if there was anything he thought ought to be highlighted, and he didn't.
And you didn't have anything? Okay. Thank you. So we will open the public hearing. If there's anyone who'd like to comment on the county selling this property, you're welcome to come to the mic, state your name, and tell us your thoughts.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the second public hearing that we have at this time is Resolution 2021-22, which declares county interest in real property located on SR 30 Valley View Highway, described as portions of parcel numbers 56117 and 123209 as surplus property, and approving the sale and conveyance thereof. John, it looks like you have some information to present before we open it to the public.
I do.
And this is by the sheriff's office.
It is. You can, it's actually two parcels. One of them is the sheriff's office parcel that you can see there. And this is, UDOT is wanting to acquire a portion of this parcel for its SR 30 project. Of course, they can exercise eminent domain and take it. They're required to first come and see if we're willing to just sell it. I'm recommending that you surplus it and agree to sell it. It's a portion of this parcel. The portion that they would like to purchase is highlighted here in blue. So it's really just a sliver here on this side. This corridor here is already a public right-of-way, I believe owned by Logan City, the SR 30 by the state. And so the UDOT would like to take this parcel and then again this small blue strip over here. The green portions are easements that they would like just for the duration of the project to be able to work in those areas. I've spoken with the sheriff and he doesn't see any issues with this. I've spoken with Matt at Public Works and he doesn't see any issues as well. The UDOT obtained an appraisal for this, and that appraisal then got a bit stale just because of the time frame, so we asked them to have it reappraised, which they did, and I want to be accurate. I think we're at 61,000 is the appraised value. The second parcel, if we come west on SR 30, you'll recognize where we are, I hope. I hope I recognize where we are. I'm gonna get us the, yeah. This is a right-of-way, Old County Road right-of-way that is currently just a two-track dirt lane. UDOT, for the SR 30 project, would be acquiring just this, kind of about this portion of that right-of-way. And the appraised value of that is $5,100. The county could go out and get our own appraisals to see if those are accurate. My guess is that that at $61,000 and $5,000, the cost of the appraisal would exceed whatever bargaining leverage we'd get out of them. So,
John, can you hold on 1 second?
yeah.
In the back, it's a little loud. If you could keep your conversations a little quieter. It's kind of competing. Thank you. Go ahead, John.
So those are the two parcels and the amounts. You have in your packet the full documentation from UDOT on those. The one thing that I could note here is that part of what we'd be agreeing to if we go with the UDOT's offer is that the remainder of this 800 south parcel, we'd be giving up the right to access, to ingress and egress directly onto SR 30 from there. That doesn't necessarily mean that we couldn't have that right through application to UDOT once the project is done, but we would be giving up a right if it currently exists. And I know that the landowner across the highway has been in touch with at least one of you about whether that access would continue as he's been coming out here and then going down that lane to another parcel up this direction. We also have here tonight, and whether you would like to hear from him now or during public comment, is Jason Allen, who's working on behalf of UDOT on this acquisition. And he could answer additional questions as well.
Thank you.
But I'm recommending that you surplus these two and then approve the sale on the terms proposed by UDOT.
Thank you, John. Jason, did you have something you wanted to add before we go into the public hearing portion?
No, I think John covered everything accurately, so thank you. Actually, I will point out, the
Will you,
appraisal, yeah.
can you come up here so we can get you on the microphone?
Want to see me on
So,
camera as
yeah,
well, I'm
please
sure.
remind us of your name and your
Yeah,
position.
Jason Allen. I own and operate Bonneville Acquisitions, and I'm a consultant working for UDOT as the acquisition agent on this project. I will point out that with the appraisals, as John mentioned, because the environmental assessment took longer than we anticipated, it expired, the effective date of those appraisals did expire. So per John's request, we did go back and update those appraisals to today's costs. We are required, UDOT or any public agency that wants to purchase property, they are required to offer just compensation, which is established, basically another word for fair market value. In this, we do an appraisal, and then we have that appraisal reviewed by a third-party appraisal. So this has been looked at by two separate appraisers who came to the agreement on this value. So I did want to point that out, that one of them did go up a little bit because of the change in values from what was appraised last year to this year. So the values that John expressed were the most recent values of fair market value, and it has been reviewed by a third-party appraiser and has been approved by him as well as far as a fair and value for just compensation. So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay.
Thank you, Jason, appreciate that.
And that increase was $5,000 to $6,000.
Okay. Okay, so this is a public hearing, so is there anyone interested in commenting on the sale of this land? You can come to the podium.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now going to go back to item 7C, which is the Agricultural Protection Advisory Board update. Boy, that's a mouthful. And we have Chris Hurrild here from Development Services to give us an update. If you remember, a couple meetings ago, the council wanted to move forward with this advisory board and also with another board that I get the name mixed up in. Chris, maybe you can kind of clarify what these two separate boards do.
I feel like every time I look at these, I learn something new, so I'm sure what I give you now, I will find something new the next time.
Thanks, Chris.
So I apologize, this isn't in your packet. Initially, I talked with Madam Chair, and I wasn't going to present anything, and thought better of it, thought I should at least give you guys an update. So this is definitely a work in progress. What you're going to see there, the very first page is the Ag Advisory Board. The second and third page are the Agricultural Protection Area Advisory Board. I'm going to plug in here and give you just some slides. Continue with the trend. Thanks, Jenny. So we have two bodies. We're in the process of doing research. We're looking through all the files I can find in my office, anything we can find online in the clerk's office to try and piece all these together. Going through all the records from the county council meetings that have been held to identify when appointments have occurred. And there's a lot of pieces moving. So right now I found in my office there's 2 boxes and 2 files that are full of documents. And so I've been through those once, and I've asked my staff to now go through and kind of separate things out and identify what's what. So we have minutes in there and a bunch of things, trying to pin stuff down. So what you'll find, the difference between the Agricultural Advisory Board and the Protection Area Advisory Board, I got a picture for you to try and sum it up. So you have the pig on the left is a little more wild, does what it wants. Maybe that's more the Ag Advisory Board. And the Ag Protection Area Board is more specific. They're very focused, and they can't focus on too much more than just ag, right? So of course I'm joking around with that, but when you look at the details of what happened, is those boards, the Ag Advisory Board is a 15-member board, has a various number of people on there, a variety of people. You've got one person from each conservation district, from Blacksmith Fork and from North Cache. You've got people from the council. You've got, I can't remember, I have it here, we can go through the details if we need, but there's 15 voting members, and then there's 15 ex officio members. It can be a range of anybody from associated entities, U.S. Forest Service, we don't have BLM up here anymore. Anybody can participate there as an ex officio member. It seems pretty broad. There are 4-year terms. Those are recommended by the county executive to the council, and the council makes those, the word they use is approved by the county council in the adopted resolution. And then the staff support there, and this was news to me, was our countywide planning and development office, which is housed in my department. And so that's why I found all the minutes in boxes in my department. So we're trying to clean those up and update this piece. On the opposite side, the Agricultural Protection Area Advisory Board, I'm just going to call it Protection Area Board to help distinguish those two. So the Protection Area Board is there to review and approve or give comment on requests for agricultural protection areas. So for example, if someone comes in with a large, or multiple people come in for ag protection area, they're trying to put additional protections on their property that secure them from potentially eminent domain or claims of nuisance against their property because it's an ag use in an ag area. So it's not just the protection they would have of being in an ag zone. This adds an additional layer of protection for them. So the benefit of having the board review that is these are folks who are involved with farms, they're involved with these conservation districts even. You can't serve on the Agricultural Protection Area Board unless you are a supervisor on one of the conservation district boards. So that's out of North Cache or Blacksmith Fork. Right now, when you look at that, there are, from what I recall, they've got 4 people on each of those boards that could qualify to serve on this board. So you have a pool of 8 people to choose from. It is recommended also by the county executive, appointed by the council, and they can choose either to have a board member be a secretary or they can choose county staff, and there's some rules surrounding that. But kind of the status is what we're focused on and maybe what's most important. Those are just some background things I've talked about. So right now, both of those boards appear to be vacant. They're not functioning and probably haven't functioned for a number of years. Recommended action is below each of those. I would recommend the council review and confirm the board's direction for the Ag Advisory Board, and then appoint members and organize the board if they desire to. Right now, the Ag Advisory Board has a full strategic plan they adopted, I think, back in 2002. And so it's been a few years, but they were very active and very engaged until about 2008. As best I can tell from the research so far, at that time they were really pursuing an open space or conservation bond. And some of you may have been part of that and participated in that. And I think in 2008 is when that bond may have not made it on the ballot or failed at the ballot, whichever it was. And that's probably why I'm having a hard time finding anything after 2008 to present to confirm what those boards are doing. We're going to continue to research that, and that's why I say this is a work in progress. We haven't got through the detail of all the documents. We have been going through, again, council minutes, trying to track down anything that would point to appointments or active involvement of the council or those on that board. But we'll give you an additional update when we track those pieces down. On the the Protection Area Board, Again, that board is also vacant, and really our recommendation there is to go ahead and appoint members and organize that board. You will have requests for agricultural protection areas come before you, and it's important to have that board functioning and ready to act and give feedback to the Planning Commission, which then passes that feedback with that board to the council for approval for those protection areas. So that is an important piece that I would recommend acting on as soon as possible. And this will be forwarded to our county executive, so he's aware of that with the list of all those possible members. So he can make that recommendation to the county council as soon as possible. That's my quick update, but I'm happy to address questions if there are any. Mr.
Why
Gunn?
only a one-year term on the Protection Area Board? Why don't we
Great question.
set out instead of renew so often?
That was the resolution they'd adopted. They felt like a one-year term was all they needed. I'm happy to look into that and see if there's a reason why. I couldn't find a reason why it's only 1 year.
So Chris, you're saying that that is already in county code?
Yes. So the codified piece is the Protection Area Board.
The Protection Area Board?
The Ag Advisory Board is strictly a board that it serves at the whim, maybe that's the wrong word, at the will of the council. So because it's been adopted by resolution, it makes sense it should operate and function. There's nothing been created or acted upon to my awareness that would tell it to stop.
It's been about 5 years since we've even had a proposed protection area, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's probably been 2 years, 3 years.
3 years.
Yep.
Oh, I thought it was longer than that.
Allen's was the last one up in Cove, if I remember right.
There was someone that came in for renewal.
I don't think they have to renew.
Something about 20 years.
There is a 20-year window, that's correct, 20 or 25.
I
Might
remember
be
it
20.
said something about 20 years, yeah.
That they have to look at it again, and if we don't do anything, it just automatically renews.
Well, that was very active when they first came out with it. There was quite a few that applied, but it's been a while.
We seem to get them in waves. So because it's been the 2 or 3 years, I expect in the next year or so, we'll get another wave of interest and people will pursue it. That seems to be the pattern, but I don't know if that will be the case.
Yeah.
Any other questions, council? Chris,
Another
thank you.
question I have in my mind is, if we do not have anybody that's actively or interested in doing an ag protection area, it's going to be a board that's sitting there with nothing to do for a long time. But I mean, it should still be there if one comes along.
Sounds like the Board of Adjustments. They sit there.
Yeah. Maybe people don't know that they can put their land in a protection area. Maybe we need to do a little PR work,
Could be.
so.
That sounds to me like there's a possibility that we ought to get the Farm Bureau and the Farmers Union to, one more time, go out and do a educational campaign to see if people have got a need for it.
Great idea.
How many acres was that again?
Which one?
The ag protection area, they had a combination.
There's a minimum acreage, and I'm trying to remember, it's probably around 5 acres to match up with farmland
Ag
assessment.
protection area, only 5 acres?
It can be pretty small, yeah.
Oh. Boy.
Did somebody in Millville
A lot bigger than that.
It's a pretty small acreage.
to stop the sewer lines and water lines and
Sewer lines and roads is usually why people wanted to stop them.
Yep.
Another tool you could use to engage with the Protection Area Board would be your Ag Advisory Board. And so a lot of the things you're recognizing are some of the stuff that you would see in that strategic plan that they pursue and has a good, strong group of interested individuals.
I noticed when the last time we talked about the Ag Advisory Board, there were some things that concerned me as to some of the entities that were mentioned. And I don't know, I was real worried about having too much influence from like university and things like that on that board, and I don't want that board hijacked in any way when it really needs to be citizen board of producers, of actually agriculturalists. rather than this is how you're supposed to do it, but they don't know how.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend a review of it. That's something I would recommend that the council consider.
I'm glad it does have to come through the council first.
It does. I put the list up there of all those who participate since I can't remember it. We've got the conservation districts, a professional planner, somebody from ag processing industry, somebody that advocates for locally grown products for local consumption, somebody from the council, a representative from the Mayor's Association, Cache County Planning Commission, someone from the Development Realtors Home Builders Community, an ag economist from USU. It goes through. I'll stop there. And then as I scroll down, maybe. And then the additional ex officio members, you can choose pretty much anything. So this is a rather large group. It depends on what you want it to do. So that's why I'll get this other stuff finished up, put together, give it to the council, give you time to look through their strategic plan they adopted and see if there are major issues or concerns you have with their goals or policies or strategies that they've identified. Because I highly recommend that that's updated. It's been 20 years. And if there are continued issues like Mr. Erickson has noted, they probably should be addressed.
Joe, were you on this back in 2002? I think my father was, I believe.
Yes, he was.
And John Mickle.
John Mickle was on there, Joe Furman on the Ag Advisory Board. There's a number of people there.
Well,
I think, Joe, you was probably on the Ag Protection Board, because you were chairman of the Blacksmith Fork at one time, and usually that's who sat years ago.
oh, it's only a couple.
Well, I was after him, and that's been a long time ago.
Just trying to make him feel young.
He had dark hair back then. If you'll notice my hair, Joe.
As long as I have some, I'm happy.
I'll say amen to that.
I'll second that.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for your work on this. It's really, really helpful to us.
Yep, glad it's helpful. I'll give you an update next time. I think we'll be through that pile by then.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move to item 10A. Check me, I got everything right. Okay, this is the ordinance adopting the Cache County Consolidated Fee Schedule. Bryce Mumford had been working on this. Obviously, he's not available tonight to talk to us about it. We don't have to pass this right now. If we want to wait, get a presentation from him, we can just leave it as pending action, or if the council wants to take action, they can. It's up to you.
Council, I have information. I spoke with Cody.
Okay,
It has not been updated since the last meeting, so the recommendation from Cody was to postpone.
thank you.
Let's wait on it.
Okay, is there any objection to waiting?
No.
Okay, we'll just leave it then on the next agenda as pending. Okay, 11A, initials proposals for consideration of action. This is resolution declaring county interest in real property on Wolfpack Way as surplus property. Do we want to act on this tonight?
Madam Chair, I would like to waive the rules and make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-21, a resolution declaring county interest in real property located on Wolfpack Way, described as parcel number 45850 as surplus property.
Their second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to waive the rules and to pass Resolution 2021-21, tongue twister, to sell the property on Wolfpack Way. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, now we'll move to item 11B, Resolution 2021-22. And this is a resolution regarding the sale of property by the Sheriff's Office on Highway 30.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would just note that Resolution 21 is just wanting to surplus it. That will come before you again.
Okay.
The sale terms that are finalized for that approval. Resolution 22 does both. It would surplus those parcels and approve the terms of sale.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. So this would be approving the sale and the surplus. Do we want to take action on this tonight, or you guys want to look at it a little more?
I still want to trade them.
Me too. Get an extra lane.
I don't want to trade them for that continuous 4-lane highway.
Yeah.
Where is he already left?
He's gone.
Yeah.
He knew we were going to bring it up. But I see that, we're talking a couple little planter boxes in use in some areas, so I don't think we ought to keep it as such and work with them. Maybe they'll still change their mind. So I move to waive the rules, approve resolution 2021-22, and as read.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2021-22, which declares county interest in real property on SR 30, described as portions of parcel 56117 and 123209, as surplus property and approving the sale and conveyance thereof. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, the next two resolutions, so the council knows that they kind of look like they're competing. They're both going to apply for a grant from the state, and we don't have to really pick which one. We can approve them both, and then we can let the state choose which one they want, or if they choose both, whatever it is. They just need to have county acknowledgement, and so that's why they have presented these resolutions for our consideration. Do need to consider them separately, and I do have a question on item D, but let's go ahead and item 11C, which is a resolution supporting Wi-Fiber Incorporated application for Utah Broadband Access Grant funding to expand high-speed internet access in underserved rural communities in Cache County. And my understanding is they're not asking for any money from the county, they just need our blessing so that they can seek this grant from the state.
I'm glad to see things moving that direction. It's badly needed.
I've got a couple, I'm here representing that group. I've got a couple clarifications for the county.
Oh, you're representing the group? Okay.
Yes,
You wanna come?
that's okay.
Yes, let's hear from you, sure.
Jeff Young, the Richmond mayor. I'm representing, so that we have Richmond, Lewiston, Cornish, Trenton, Newton, Clarkston, and Amalga that have all passed this same resolution or in the process in the next day to pass the resolution. One of the pieces that we are really trying to accomplish is that we're trying to help the county as a whole get this service. Typically, these grants will service a really small pocket area, and then anyone that surrounds that area won't get access to the service. So we've joined together and appreciate the county allowing this proposal to come forward so that we can try to have coverage on the whole area. The only request, there isn't physical monetary items, the only request that has been presented that we are hoping the cities as well as the county would be open to is to potentially house, if we do receive grants, to potentially house towers or areas that we can then distribute the internet to the areas out in the county. Obviously, the county is the most spread, and so trying to get fiber and then towers to get the 100 meg plus connections. So that would be the only thing that we would request. That's not a set thing, and obviously we can go private. We've had meetings before with the county originally to be in the discussions. We didn't end up having that meeting, but the intent is to start with just this group, and then there's also USDA money coming, and the intent is to also move west and south on the county. So our hope is that which will be new for the county. We don't get any of this money or very small chunks of it. Our hope is that we can hit the whole county with some of this grant money, with the same concept that it's the first time there's enough money there that We're not coming to you saying, hey, can you put in a couple mil and we'll throw in a little bit. We actually have some options so that the county doesn't have to put, substantial amounts of money in place like is typical.
Question for you, and maybe
Sure.
you weren't the one to answer it, but it was my understanding that you couldn't do internet fiber outside of a city, because if you hook someone up outside of a city, then you had to hook everyone up. Now, case in point is I have Comcast right in front of my house, but where I live in the county, they won't hook me up because of that reason. If they hook me up, being outside of a city, then that means Comcast has to hook everybody up. Is this saying that doesn't stand anymore?
No, so that actually isn't the case now. They don't hook you up because it doesn't pay to hook you up. So their take right now, and probably half of you on here to have the same thing. That's the reason we joined together with the community, is the main provider of our area, for lack of better words, has kind of cherry-picked the area. They've picked key areas, which has actually really affected the county the worst, because if you look at the map, the county is the one that actually has kind of taken the negative brunt of that. So they picked key areas where there was a lot more people, and then all these other areas never got funded. So then it was left to the private entity whether they chose to hook you up or not. And they use a calculation. If they can hook you up for $2,500 their cost, typically $2,000 to $3,000, you're in. If they can't, you're out. That's how it works. This is different. This money, the reason we joined together was what you just described, we were so frustrated with. So this one is designed to utilize the whole area so that if anyone wants a service at a reasonable cost, that grant money and the funds would go towards that.
So it might move us closer to whether people in the county would be able to be hooked up.
Without question, which is why we're here with the county. And one of the reasons that we particularly went with this provider was there weren't hardly any providers there weren't any that stepped forward and said they would be willing to service the whole area. And if you'll notice, a lot of the presentations that come forward, even at the state level, they once again will target really small pocket areas, but they won't address the bigger issue, which is, as you guys are recognizing, there's a lot more growth in the county, just naturally that's happening, and there's just not plans that try to address that. So this one, we're trying to spread it out. The cities, the advantage of having the cities on board is typically that's where your backhaul fiber comes from. And that's the reason we've met with the county, and we hope that we'll continue to work with the county in trying to get main backhaul fiber to core areas, and then you can run fiber cheaper to, say, a tower. And then if you can get more towers up, then you can put a faster speed. So right now, your speed outside of Comcast in the county, so this is average in the county, is about 10 megs. So if you take a good portion of the county, Cache Junction, Avon, if you take those areas, they're classified as unserved. So unserved is under 25 meg. And so a portion, Cache County actually accounts for the majority of the unserved in the county, your unincorporated areas. And then if you go underserved, that's 100 meg or less. That accounts for a large portion also in the county. So really the only ones that typically are over that 100 are the ones that, say, Comcast or some of these others have really targeted the heavy areas. They then say, we're over that speed, therefore these grants don't work. And we're actually in the process with the state. One of the frustrating things, the county is actually really susceptible to this issue. Fiber will go through, so say, not to point out a company, but say a Comcast or somebody comes through, because they're the largest one, they'll go through your county, and wherever they go, they'll claim a map that's really wide that says area covered. So what's happened is a lot of the people that live in the unincorporated area of the county and almost all the outskirts of the city, a lot of them are showing that they're actually covered by 100 meg service. Matter of fact, your area shows it's covered. So according to the state grants, your area is not allowed to receive funding because it already shows that you have it. What you described is what hundreds and hundreds of other people are experiencing, which is because the map is not set off specific addresses, it's just based off of submit your address, and that's the map they go off of. It's really skewed in our valley. And it's actually hurt us because now we have so many areas that we can't get this fiber into, at least to get the funding. So our petition that we're working on, it's a long shot. Our petition is we're actually trying to appeal that map to say that in Cache County, it actually is misrepresenting a lot of the people that really need it, that we're trying to service. But to do that, we have to have the state somehow submit that you have to actually prove if you provide service rather than saying, can you get service? And that's a key thing in their mapping. When they go to providers, they say, where can you provide service? Well, if I'm a wireless internet provider, we could go to the 5 or 10 of them here in the valley, and they would say, well, I go wireless, I can provide it anywhere. So then their map is really big, but at the end of the day, they don't actually help the people that are out a little bit. So that's hopefully the intent behind this.
Thank you, Jeff. Do you know if this particular proposal includes Cove?
Yes, it does. It's all unincorporated of the county. And we recognize there's other groups that are submitting, and we actually are okay with that. So competition isn't necessarily a bad thing, and we would never try to kick that one out. Our only intent was that a lot of these companies that come in they do these little areas, and it basically says that most of your county, if we go at that rate, it will be years and years, maybe 20, 30 years to even get some type of a reasonable service. And our hope is with this resolution that all of the cities that have joined, and we hope there'll be other cities that will see this and say, okay, let's try to join in and see if we can't make something happen. It will allow us to open up to some of the other grants. As you guys are aware, there's the USDA grant that's following this one right behind, and then there's potentially another 2 to 3 grants that are coming that this same concept could apply. So we're trying to do this now, but if we don't get it, that's okay. You'll probably see us again coming back saying, okay, we have another one coming, we're trying to work together, we're gonna go for it again, because at the end of the day, there's not a lot of people that have the 4 to 8 million that's needed to service, say, the north area. And there's not someone that has 4 to 8 million, including the county, sitting around to service, say, the south area and the west. So that's where this grant money actually could have some tremendous help to our communities.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Any further questions, council? Okay, thank you very much for speaking up. Council, would you like to take action on this item?
I would.
Okay.
Would waive the rules and make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-23, a resolution supporting Y-Fiber Incorporated's application for Utah Broadband Access Grant funding.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2021-23, which is a resolution that supports Y-Fiber Incorporated application for a grant. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Okay, the next one is a similar one, and this one is item 11D, Resolution 2021-24, which is supporting direct communications application for the same grant. And I believe that this is just for the Cove area. And that's what it shows on the map. And I had one question on this, council. There's one line in here that I was uncomfortable with on one of the whereas, the last whereas paragraph. It says that direct communications has demonstrated an acceptable history of service in counties similar in size and scope to Cache County, has demonstrated successful history of pursuing, applying for, and winning similar grants, and the ability to meet requirements of those grants. I'm uncomfortable with that because I have no idea if they've done that, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I wanted to bring that up. And this one also asks for, on the therefore let it be it resolved, that they'd like county support in providing reasonable access to right-of-ways and knowledge of infrastructure and that type of thing. And just want to call your attention to that.
There's anybody here represent that?
Is there anyone here that will okay.
Yes. Brooke Allen, I'm with Direct Communications.
If you want to state your name again once you get to the mic to make sure that we heard that.
Brooke Allen, I'm here with Direct Communications. To give you a little background on Direct Communications was formed in 1954 as Rockland Telephone in Rockland, Idaho. And you specifically asked about our history of doing this. State of Idaho has had a similar round of grants. The first 2 rounds of grants that they granted, we accounted for 22% of the awarded grants. So we have delivered a number of these. Our grant is very specific. It's directed to the Cove area. The problem with doing a countywide grant is there's a lot of areas in the county that don't qualify. And the state, realistically, the state has a very limited budget. They're expecting approximately 400 applications. So applications have to be very specific and very focused on an area for the state to even be able to look at them. We'd like to put this proposal forward to you. We already have fiber assets that go through the Cove area, come down the highway we have a location in Preston, and then we come down and service several businesses in North Logan as well. So we already have fiber deployed there. It would be a build out from that existing fiber. And we do have a history of once we develop an area, we build out from that area. So we will build out to cover the whole northern Utah area. That is the plan.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, why have you pinpointed Cove as your goal?
It's the next logical step for us because we already have fiber in that area, and we would deploy from the state line down.
Cove is your largest area that you identified?
If you look at a broadband map, and that's why we identified that. And we will be going after additional grants in other areas of Cache County as well. That was just the largest underserved, unserved area in the county.
I, make an appointment with you and I'll introduce you to the college young area.
We're aware of that. We're just...
I mean, it makes my mind baffle when I can't get it and I'm right smack dab in the middle of 4 cities. And yet Cove is the golden child. I mean, I'm kind of, I love Cove,
lives there.
So I will answer that very simply. Unfortunately, the state and federal grants have been very specific. They've gone on broadband maps using Ookla data, and the grants are awarded to underserved and unserved. So underserved is by federal mandate right now 25.3. That's being, so 25 meg download, 3 meg upload. That is being moved to 100 by 20 in the next round of grants. And unserved is 10.1 or below. And unfortunately, you do have the large providers that have come in. Mr. Young addressed this. We've had large providers come in and they say they cover an entire area when they don't. And so because of that, there are some challenges nationally to the broadband maps and to the actual area coverage maps that the FCC is using. And unfortunately, most of the states are using those same FCC broadband maps to look at coverage and awarding grants. And that's why some of the areas where there isn't service probably are going to be a while before they get them because of that, because we can't get grants in those areas because they show as fully served.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I'm all for Cove, you know. I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve this.
Okay, waive the rules.
Richmond's pretty close to Cove. Yes, I'll waive the rules.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2021-24, which is a resolution supporting direct communications application.
Question?
Oh, yeah, for Utah Board Access Grant funding to expand high-speed internet access in underserved rural communities in Cache County. David, you have a question?
I just have a comment there in debate there, I guess, for that last paragraph, you mentioned it too. In addition, the county lends support by providing reasonable access to right-of-ways, knowledge of infrastructure, location. I mean, is that possible for us to do all that on that last paragraph?
John's not here, so I'm speaking out of turn a little bit. That feels like contractual language to me that's usually in the form of a different contract. And so I would hesitate to enter into an agreement that stated that. And I think you're right to mention that there's discomfort there with that statement.
Well, I mean, then all of a sudden you're in big definitions, what's reasonable, and I know, I don't know, and then location, existing utilities, all that stuff, there's a lot of that we don't even have access to all that is.
We would be open to you accepting the proposal. This, when I met with the county commissioners, I met with several of the county commissioners last week. They asked us to send a draft proposal. This is a draft proposal, so it is not our final proposal. If you want to go ahead and do that and strike the language that of the last wherefore, we would be open to that as well.
Yeah, it would actually be in the last, therefore, let it be resolved, you know, that last paragraph. I would like to strike that out for right now.
Okay.
The rest of it I feel comfortable with, if that's okay.
Do you feel comfortable with the paragraph before that I mentioned?
And
I can't vote for it with that in there because and it's no disrespect to you, I don't know your company and I can't vouch for it. So I support the idea.
Yeah. This gentleman just brought up in that last paragraph, instead of striking the entire paragraph, can we just strike the last sentence, which is we agree to lend our support to this grant, including but not limiting, and then to the end of because the first sentence needs to be left in wherefore let it be resolved that Cache County, Utah agrees to work with direct communications in pursuit of a broadband access grant from the state, because that language has to be in there for us to be able to
those
proceed.
first two lines, an exception for the word in, could be, I guess, left in, but the rest has got to be stricken out.
Yes.
Okay, I would agree with that one.
Okay, so we,
Okay, but now the paragraph before that, I don't know. You know, like I say, I had never heard of, you know, direct communications, you know, except the phone call that I got.
Here is, I had property and have property in Bear Lake and use direct communications. So when it's here, do we know cost to our citizens and what's going on there? That's how they differ. Because when I was in Bear Lake, I had to get the phone number and then apply for it that way. So, but it was good internet, but cost too is up there.
And in some ways, I guess we're just saying, hey, they're an existing business and we're letting them apply for the grant. But,
And I will address the cost. The reason the gentleman had to apply for the phone is in the Bear Lake area. On the Idaho side of the Bear Lake area, we own the telephone company. And up until a year ago, federal law prohibited us from selling internet separately from the phone services. We had to sell them bundled. We do not have to, and we don't. We have a waiver there. So as far as our background, I said we started in 1954. We now do business in 28 states, and we're pursuing these grants actively in multiple states. So we are not new to this, and we'd be happy to provide any of our financials or anything to the county that they needed as well.
thank you. And I just wanted to clarify one point where you said you met with the county commissioners. We have a council form of government, so I'm assuming you met with our county executive, who's the executive branch. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay. wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Thank you.
Okay, so David's made a motion to strike the last sentence on therefore let it be resolved, starting with in addition and ending with secure the grant funds. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Is there a second to that motion to amend?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to strike that last sentence, beginning with in addition and ending with secure the grant fund. So we're going to vote on the question of whether to amend the motion. We're not voting on the main motion itself. So all in favor of striking that last sentence as specified, please say aye.
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 Any opposed to that? Any abstention? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. So now we will move back, unless there's further discussion. Okay, we'll move back to the underlying main motion, which was a motion to waive the rules and approve Resolution 2021-24 as amended with that sentence stricken. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Okay,
I was just shocked to hear that there was discrepancy or issues with anything that came from a federal agency. You know, those maps were inaccurate. I was shocked.
Never heard of such a thing, right?
Learn
it's a
something
new
new every
thing,
day.
right? Newsworthy. Okay, all right, we will now move to item 11E, property tax hardship requests. And council, I'll call your attention to one of those items. We had a question on last time, sent it back for further information because that person had not provided enough information, and that person has withdrawn. So, and that's listed in your packet. So we have just two then requests. And, oh, I see our auditor clerk is here. Mr. Bradfield, would you like to comment on these?
Yes, these ones are very straightforward. Well, first off, let me thank you for letting me come before you, council. Always good to be here. These ones are fairly straightforward. 0010 qualifies at 7%, and 0012, according to our own county resolution 97-04, qualifies at household income abatement 44%. So these are very straightforward.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I read through these fairly carefully, and I don't have any issue with the recommendations that were made by the clerk auditor office. And unless there's other discussion, I would make a motion that we approve as recommended by the clerk auditor's office.
Second that motion.
Okay, been moved and seconded to approve both of these property tax hardships as recommended by the clerk auditor's office. And I will just say Diana does a superb job in going through these and making sure we have the good information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor of approving these requests, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, motion carries on both of those.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Okay, the next item we had that I put on was 10F, property tax discussion. We had sent out the notice that we intended to increase the property tax rate, and because we had done that, we had to put this official language as an agenda item. So we no longer, we're working toward not doing that, so I don't know that we need this item, but it's on here. If any discussion, if council has any discussion or we want to talk about it, I'll mention that the notice said that we were going to raise the property tax rate above the certified tax rate by approximately 9.45% in order to generate about $1.49 million in property tax revenue for the purpose of keeping up with inflation. And so that is specific language that we have to use if we're going to have that hearing. But we have been working as a council very hard to make sure that we didn't have to do that and have been looking for money. Appreciate our finance director working on that as well. So I don't know that we really need any discussion unless you guys have something you want to say.
I think we've done a good job, and we have sufficient funds from other sources. There's no need to raise property taxes if we have sufficient funding, and no need to burden our citizens any further.
Thank you,
I
Carl.
want to pre-thank the different departments that are going to be donating portions of their budget to cover those other things, and I want to appreciate that. But, you know, it really, though, this last, in that little line there that we're talking about, the purpose of keeping up with inflation, that, when I read that, that bothered me.
Me too.
Because often when you, with that, that's sometimes the best time to tighten things. We don't just want to raise something just because inflation. Inflation is a, you know, kind of false bottom to everything at times, and I hate to be so reactionary by, that's really what we're after, because I hope that isn't what we were after, just to keep up with inflation, so. Anyway.
Thanks, Dave, I agree.
Just keeping up with rising costs. We hadn't really specifically said, and so.
Yeah, I know. I understand it, but it just, when I read that, it just kind of hit me a little wrong, saying, well, that's usually the best time you tighten things up and, you know, and hold on, because.
Absolutely, and I think this year especially, I think we're going to see a lot of inflation next year, and I think that our citizens are going to appreciate very much that we did not raise our property tax, especially with some of the increased housing valuations that have gone up. So we are working to keep those costs down. Okay, so we'll move to item 12. Or 12A, our UAC convention is coming up November 10th to the 12th in St. George. Looks like all of us are going to be there. I will call your attention to, I got an email from UAC this afternoon about attending a fun celebration. Did you, okay, wanted to make sure that you saw that. Also, we've had a request to have, possibly have dinner with, I'm trying to remember who he told me now. Anyway, I think it was an internet provider, another one. So I'll get that information to you as soon as I get more. I just wanted to give you a heads up about that for Thursday. I don't know if there'll be some competing other dinners, but I'll let you know, so. Okay, let's move to council member reports. Nolan, let's start with you.
The only thing I have is once Planning Commission passes something like a CUP in that, we really don't have a striking way to keep up on that those actions are enforced that we put on those CUPs. If Chris is still here, I've talked with Chris. I've got 2 in my area that citizens are just wondering why we're so dead on correcting it or getting it passed, and then it's just, we don't have anything for enforcement. And it is irritating to some of the citizens, especially if you're next door to that CUP. And my personal opinion is there are some pieces of CUPs that I don't like. I mean, if a CUP comes up, it's just rubber, it's stamped almost. There's really nothing we can back away from, and I'd like to see something that delves into that. So that's where I'm coming from, and I know everybody in the county's busy, and development office has been good, but they just can't keep up on all that stuff when we put all those items. I mean, this particular one had 18 points that they needed to do before, as they do that. And some of the citizens go on, and if the county isn't up, or if you don't have a citizen watching it, then that's not monitored very good. And I think there's a condition there that we need to be watching, is my opinion.
Chris, do you want to
It's that
give us?
enforcement.
Yeah, it's that enforcement side.
Enforcement that just is hurting.
Yeah, it's a concern we've had in our office for a number of years, is the enforcement piece. That's assigned to the Development Services Director. So when Josh was here at the time, he took that hot hat off and gave it to me, which is very kind of him to do. I think on a very low-level enforcement approach, it's difficult for us to spend the time on investigation. And so what tends to happen is we'll have complaints come in, and we'll have just go out to the site, we have to spend time at the site, we have to come back, we have to draft the paperwork. There's our sad tale of we have to work, right? That's terrible. But the disadvantage is it means we're not doing things we're supposed to be doing with our other responsibilities. And for the director to be spending time there is a bit of a challenge. So what we've been doing presently is right now we have a part-time enforcement officer. It's been approved by the council. I'm drafting the job description for that, and then it'll have to go through that review process with HR. We'll confirm some pieces, we'll post it. We'll probably have the same issue everyone else is having with staffing, is my anticipation. It's a little different market. We haven't tested that yet. My anticipation and hope is over the next year, we'll come back to the council with the request for a full-time person. We have enough conditional use permits to follow up on, let alone the typical enforcement requests we have. We could easily staff one full person. Now, we have to then consider space. We have a lot of other considerations to make there, but there's a definite need from the enforcement side.
Wasn't there, at one time, I'd heard somewhere in a meeting that we talked a little bit about marrying a little bit of that with the sheriff's office too.
We did. We've had a meeting. I've had a couple meetings with the sheriff's office, and more recently we met as a group and sat down with the sheriff's department, with the county executive, building department, fire district. Our intent as a development services is trying to get everyone on the same page so they don't get a enforcement piece from, for example, today I just outed a site and it was me, Paul Burnson, our chief building official, and Jason Wynn. So each of us would have a separate enforcement piece we would bring to an applicant, and it turns into just the development services office functioning as that central point. We facilitate all that stuff because we have that process built. But they are all different processes, so it doesn't quite work. So we had this meeting. It didn't quite result in what we had hoped. Mr. Zook has asked us to go back and try to revisit that and see if we can re-engage with the sheriff's office and try and get some more ideas flowing there, how we can work together there. But right now, there's not a plan to make that work. Right now, the plan is to do it on our own so we can get some progress happening. I
appreciate what you do on there. It's just that enforcement side. I mean, we're very careful in going through that process, but once it's passed, then it's out there floating, and we got problems.
And all those CUPs are there to protect the citizens.
Yeah,
and we're not, it's so hard to keep up to protecting the citizens.
Yep.
Chris, do we have a time limit on, like, do they have to renew them after a certain time, or is it indefinite once you get it?
It runs with the land. It's appurtenant to the land. So once you have it, it stays with it. Even if property owners change, it still applies to that property. The tool that we have to revoke a permit is if there are certain rules that or considerations that are made, we do an investigation and we can send it back to the Planning Commission to revoke their permit. We've done that and are going to be doing that more often. The most recent one is related to the Holyoke Airport outside of Mendon. So if, for example, they're not meeting the conditions of their permit, or they can't meet the conditions of their permit because of things have changed, then the commission has the power to revoke that permit. Now they can come back and reapply, but they may not be able to meet the requirements. So if you want to see that happening, it should be on our December agenda for the Planning Commission. If you want to see what happens there, we anticipate that will hopefully have action taken at that time.
Well, CUPs are frustrating to the citizens because if you apply for CUP, you virtually cannot accept it or approve it. So we post it, citizens come in and talk, and then we get nowhere.
Have you already heard of the RV park outside of Smithfield?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we've heard of that.
So we're all aware of that one. That's something that, and that's in my neighborhood, so I respond to those folks up there and give them direction saying, the petition's great. You can sign 50 petitions. Doesn't mean anything, which is kind of hard to say as a government staff person to say, you're wasting your time. But we do give them direction saying, You need to focus on impacts and solutions. How are you going to mitigate what you perceive as a problem? Because the zone allows it.
When we put that out, there's two things in there that I keep focusing on, and it talks about if you can prove that safety is an issue, or if you prove that you're changing the ambiance of the neighborhood. Isn't that some striking against the CUP? How can we never use that, or it never gets ground?
The term mitigation is very soft or broad, however you want to interpret that. It doesn't mean they erase the impact to safety. It means they lessen it. And so as long as that lessening is reasonable, then we have to approve. The commission has to approve.
When a citizen says that's effect, and I don't know the direct wording, but it's pretty much changing the neighborhood. An RV park, to my opinion, would be changing the neighborhood. Much like what we had as the straw bale thing out in Petersboro, that was changing a neighborhood in a sense. So I don't know how we find, or if John's got to give us some interpretation on that, but.
So our experience with conditional use permits when we deny them is we get sued and we lose.
So that's why I'm like, why do we even put that in there?
There has to be such an egregious impact that cannot be mitigated that we can deny it. So an RV park changing a perception of place probably isn't going to rise to that level from my perspective. If it were somebody with the shooting range right next to it that's shooting towards the houses, we would absolutely deny that. That's kind of a clear distinction for me when we talk about safety. When we're just talking about some additional traffic on the road, I don't think we're going to get there.
Is that mitigation state law?
It is. So the state law does allow us to deny it, but that bar is very high.
Do you think we need to go through and look at what conditional uses we have allowed and maybe change some of that?
That's one of those we're discussing is specific to airports as we look at these. And we've had some discussions, I think, with some of the council members about that, in specifying that if you're going to have an airport, that we need to adjust that to say all restricted zone type zones and areas have to be on your property and not on anyone else's property. That makes sense to me. I always point back to this, but I'm hopeful we get done with our general plan soon and we revise our zones and we're more specific about what types of uses we allow in the zones and start to let those zones bear their weight and do their own lifting and kind of let, if there's a permitted use in a type of zone, it's very clear what kind of use will occur there, so you're not surprised by airports or RV parks or those types of things that are of a concern. But that's still some time out, so I know that there needs to be some intermediate considerations.
Thanks, Chris.
That was my 2 bits worth, and
That was
$20 worth, so.
That was like $50 worth.
Yeah.
Is that everything then?
All I can think of now, yes.
Thank you, Nolan. Paul?
Nothing for me.
Barbara?
Just the parade on Saturday. It was fun, but it was rainy, but. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. Of course, attendance of the parade goers was way down, but those who were there looked like they were having a great time.
I think that was the third rainy homecoming parade in a row now.
Yeah.
In a row.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too.
But it was fun. We got to ride inside the truck, because there was just Barbara and me.
You mean you didn't have to get out and walk?
No.
Water ski.
I stood up and hung out the
Yeah,
window.
Barbara's thin enough, she can stand up.
I will
Stand up and
never,
look out
I
the
will
window.
never forget my walking the full length of the Highland Parade.
Here we go.
Getting down to the very last bag of candy, and the little road runner come running up right behind me and snatched it and just kept right on running.
That's funny. Okay. Is that everything, Barbara? Thank you. Okay, I'll just mention that, just call your attention in your packet under item 12, there's a letter recognizing the roads that are crossing the Utah Trust Lands at Cinnamon Creek. If you remember, that's the Sitla parcel that's going to be sold, and we had to identify, the county had to identify roads, and that letter from Sitla just lets us know which ones they are recognizing and which ones not, basically. So I just want to make sure that council saw that. Carl, do you have anything?
Nope.
Okay.
I was gonna ask the executive if he had heard anything more about the chances of the pickleball people being able to use the the new event center, and one more time I'm gonna have to go back and report to the people that I didn't get a chance to visit with him. So, I was gonna have Bryce, well, let's say this, I'm hoping Bryce will be back shortly, and I'll put the burden on him.
Sounds good. Anything
all.
else? Okay, thanks, Gordy. Dave?
I was impressed with the letter also, specifying Davenport Road, and, you know, in other words, they also recognize it as what we recognize it as. I was wondering, I had a question, possibly, we're getting to a point here, and was talking to several individuals, would it be good for another recorder's update, see how far we've come with it? Or do we want
Yes.
to wait on that? It's just a thought.
No, I think that that's very timely and in order.
I think we need to hear if there's any progress for what's happening, money, you know, because there's a lot of people still needing things, so. Then also, we do need to, I was also hoping the executive
Lay that out there.
was here.
There you go.
Branson Engineering is still asking about, you know, possible right of way on that little property up in Lewiston. And, so hope Bryce can get back and that we can get with them, so, okay. Other than that, that is it.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Okay, let's see, I think we don't have any executive session, just double checking. Okay. Seeing, is there any other further business? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
That John
Oh.
hasn't been doing his work if he hasn't got another executive session on the line.
He's just efficient, he gets them all done in those quick ones.
He must be slowing down his efforts.
There's one on the horizon. How big of a horizon?
All right, seeing no further business, we are adjourned.
I was hoping before 7.
I did.
I went and saw it Saturday. I liked it.
I
Yeah.
cried.
James Bond.
Really?
Yeah.
Sean, how are you doing?
This one, mine. Thank you, Sean. Do you want to tell us